well. So the challenge was really figuring out how I can get this story out there, whether it's in the book, yes, but promoting it and maybe even just speaking about my experience, which I don't think it's unique. I think a lot of women go through this. And just for me being able to talk about it, briefly, that when I originally wrote the book, it's called Protection from the Storm. That's not the book that I wanted to write. I wanted to write something totally different. And a friend of mine, she has a publication company called Smart Girl Media, and we were talking about it. And she was asking me what I wanted to do, and I told her what I wanted to write about. And she said, "Well, I'm not really sure if that's the way we should go." She was giving me a little guidance, but she said, "Tell me a little bit more about your story and some things that maybe other people don't know." And I just started talking, and I started talking. Well, I was in a shelter with my family, and I did this. And she said, "Wait a minute." She said, "Do you realize what you just said?" And I'm like, "What?" And she said, "You were in a shelter with your children, with your family. And now you are overseeing 7 shelters in New York City." She said, "Do you realize
Mhm.
what that story is?" And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, okay. But for me, it was more like, that's my story. That's my journey. I went through it. I got through it, but I wasn't thinking about the power in that. And so once she actually helped me to see that. And once I started going through the process and writing about it and remembering, and it made me cry. Like, I was just like, wow, like, this is so powerful. And realizing how God was there with me every step of the way. And if it wasn't for my faith and it wasn't for him, because people will often ask me, "How did you do all of that?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I don't know. I just did it." No, God helped me through that. He saw me through that. And this is what I was supposed to do, to tell my
Wow.
story.
And you say that, and I'm listening. You say New York, and then I'm like, okay, I know a young lady that lives in New York that also had a similar experience as yours. Um, I happened to meet her on social media.
Mm,
We were on the same podcast network. Um, and in the midst of her going through, I find out she was going through, but she experienced the same thing. But I'm glad she was too able to get through, because now she's in her own apartment. She's doing amazing.
amazing.
So, you know, people need to hear those stories, because imagine how many other people are in New York or in Philadelphia or in Atlanta or in these major cities that are experiencing the same thing
Abs-
and think that they are alone, that there's nobody else that has been through that or going through that, when there's other people going through the same thing. But now that you have been through it, you were able to get through it. So now it's a question for a lot of people is, how did you get through it?
mm,
What were the steps? And I'm sure you share that in everything that you do, everything that you put out,
mm,
every time you get a chance to speak.
mm,
I'm sure that you're sharing these things, but those are things that, people want to know.
mhm,
Okay, I see she went through these things. How did she get through that?
mhm.
And how were you able to, because you're a beautiful young lady, how were you
Yeah.
able to maintain and not look like what you've been through? Like, when people, like, but I tell people now, I don't even say, I'm glad I don't look like what I've been through. You know what I say now? I say, you know what? It took that to make me look like this. It
Mm.
took that to get me to look like this, because guess what? If I had not went through it, would I look like this? That's what I say. Would I look, would I be able to say that, but no, I'm supposed to look like this, because this is what getting through it looked like.
Yes,
Thank you, Holy Ghost.
yes,
This is
yes,
what
yes.
getting through it look like. So
That's
now
what it looks like.
you
Mhm.
can tell people this is what it looked like. So you can encourage them. That can be your encouragement to if you want to look like, eh, you've been through the fire but not been burnt or
That's
smell
right.
like
That's
smoke.
right.
Hey, this
That's
this is this is how
right.
you do it. This is
That's
how you
right.
do it.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
Look, just listening to your story has
Mhm.
really just it just did something to me. Like, you don't know how many bits and pieces of the things that you've shared that I've experienced.
Wow.
Um, I um been homeless a couple of times. You
Mm,
know, I've had to start over a couple of times. You
mm,
know, I've, and a lot of people don't even know this, but when I left my domestic violence, when I left that, and I was told